No man decides to become low value. Nobody sits down one morning and makes the conscious choice to let their standards drop, their discipline fade, their direction blur into nothing. It does not happen that way. It happens the other way. It happens slowly, quietly, through accumulated small decisions that each seemed reasonable in the moment and only reveal their cost over time. Comfort creeps in. You skip the workout once and the world does not end, so you skip it again. You avoid the difficult conversation because the timing is not right, and then the timing is never right. You let the career plateau because the current situation is good enough, and good enough becomes the ceiling. You start negotiating with weakness, telling yourself that the compromise is temporary, that you will get back on track, that this version of you is not the real version. You don't lose value in one mistake. You lose it in repeated compromises. That is the distinction that matters. The single failure is recoverable. The pattern of quiet surrenders to comfort is the thing that actually changes who you are. Today, you are going to learn the 7 signs that you are slipping and exactly how to reverse it before the drift becomes permanent. Decline is silent, but it is readable. And once you can read it, you can stop it. Here's the truth that reframes everything else in this conversation. Low value is not about money. It is not about your physical appearance, your car, your apartment, the watch on your wrist. These things it can be present in a man who is genuinely high value and absent in a man who is genuinely high value. They are not the variable. The variable is internal. It is posture, standards, self-control, direction. The internal structure that produces the behavior that the world reads as value. External appearance versus internal structure. That is the binary. The man who has built his life around the external signals of value. The visible markers that communicate success to a social audience, without the internal architecture that those signals are supposed to represent, is a man whose value is performed rather than real. And performed value does not hold under scrutiny. It does not produce the genuine respect, the genuine opportunities, the genuine relationships that actual value produces. Value is built daily and lost daily. The construction and the erosion are both ongoing. The question is which direction the net movement is in. Now the evolutionary context, because the biology underneath this is real and worth understanding. Across human history, male value was assessed along consistent dimensions. Competence in the skills and domains that mattered for survival and leadership. Emotional stability under pressure. The ability to provide and protect. The behavioral signals of genuine capability and direction. These were not arbitrary cultural preferences. They were functional assessments of whether this man was someone whose partnership and leadership would produce better outcomes than alternatives. The assessment criteria have evolved in their specific expression. The underlying biology has not. When competence drops, perceived value drops. This is the mechanism. The man who is developing genuine competence, who is visibly improving at things that matter, who is demonstrably capable in the domains that count, is sending biological signals of value that operate below the level of conscious analysis. The man whose competence is stagnating or declining sends the opposite signals, equally below the conscious threshold, equally influential on how he is perceived and treated. Modern world. Same biology. The signs we are about to discuss are the behavioral expressions of a declining value signal. Learn to read them in yourself. Sign number 1. You seek validation more than you build competence. This is the foundational sign because it represents a fundamental misdirection of energy. The man who is oriented toward validation is investing his primary effort in managing how he is perceived rather than in actually developing the capabilities that would justify the perception he is seeking. It is the pursuit of the signal without the substance the signal is supposed to represent. The behavioral expressions are specific, the constant need for approval from your partner, from your social circle, from the algorithm that functions as the primary metric of your self assessment. The overposting that is really approval seeking dressed as self expression. The over explaining of your decisions and choices to people who did not ask for an explanation and whose approval you are unconsciously pursuing by providing it. These behaviors have a common structure. They are all oriented towards securing external confirmation of a value you have not yet built internally. Validation dependency signals insecurity to everyone around you. Not because they have analyzed it consciously, because the biological root of a man who needs constant external confirmation is that his internal reservoir is insufficient, that he does not have enough genuine confidence in his own value to sustain it without ongoing external input, and that red, accurate or not, produces a specific kind of social response. The man who needs your validation is easier to manage than the man who does not, and people, consciously or not, adjust their treatment accordingly. The fix is a reorientation of the primary metric. Shift from approval to improvement. The question changes from, did they like it, to, did I get better? The investment shifts from managing perception to developing capability. Build skill. Build results. The external recognition follows genuine competence in a way that it never follows the pursuit of recognition directly. Respect follows competence. That is the rule. Build the thing that produces the signal, not the signal itself. Sign number 2. You avoid hard things. This sign is the most immediately legible because its behavioral expressions are so concrete. The workout you keep delaying. The career conversation you keep not having. The business idea that stays in the planning phase indefinitely because execution requires risk, and risk is uncomfortable. The confrontation that the situation genuinely requires, but that you keep finding reasons to postpone. Avoidance is the behavioral signature of a man who has allowed comfort to become the primary decision criterion. When the question of whether to do something is answered primarily by whether it is comfortable, when discomfort has become a sufficient reason not to act. The man has inverted the relationship between himself and growth. Growth requires discomfort. Every meaningful development, physical, professional, relational, psychological, occurs at the boundary of the comfortable and the uncomfortable. The man who will not cross that boundary has sealed himself inside a perimeter that only shrinks over time. Comfort versus growth. That is the binary, not comfort versus suffering. Comfort versus the specific quality of engagement with difficulty that produces development. Low-value men protect comfort. High-value men pursue discomfort. This is not masochism. It is the recognition that the difficult thing, the workout that hurts, the conversation that is awkward, the career risk that creates uncertainty, is where the actual development occurs. The man who consistently chooses the comfortable option is consistently choosing to remain unchanged. And remaining unchanged in an environment that continues to evolve and raise its standards is a form of decline. The fix is concrete and immediate. Do one uncomfortable thing daily, not 10, not a complete life overhaul. 1. The friction tolerance that was lost through extended comfort is rebuilt the same way it was lost, through repeated small decisions. Every time you choose the uncomfortable option when the comfortable one was available, you are rebuilding the capacity to tolerate and pursue discomfort. And that capacity compounds. The man who does one uncomfortable thing every day for a year is a different category of person than the one who began. Sign number 3: your emotional control is weak. Emotional control is the multiplier on everything else. The man with strong skills and weak emotional control consistently underperforms his own capability because his emotional reactivity degrades the quality of his decisions, his communication, and his social authority at exactly the moments when those things matter most. The behavioral expressions are clear: reacting impulsively to provocations, emotional and verbal and behavioral escalation in response to friction before the rational brain has had the opportunity to engage, arguing to win rather than to understand or resolve, the investment of ego in the outcome of conflict rather than in the quality of the interaction, losing frame under pressure, the abandonment of your own psychological context, your own clear sense of who you are and what you stand for when the social or emotional pressure to accommodate or react becomes intense enough. Emotional instability reduces authority. Every time you react impulsively, you are communicating something about your internal state: that you can be moved, that you can be destabilized, that your equilibrium is not as stable as genuine authority requires. The person who can reliably trigger a significant emotional response in you has, by definition, more influence over your behavior than you do in that moment. And influence over your behavior is influence over you. The calmest man controls the dynamic. This is the rule. Not because calm is passive, but because the calm that comes from genuine internal stability produces a quality of presence that reactive emotion cannot match and cannot destabilize. The fix begins with the pause, the 2-second gap between stimulus and response that gives the rational brain the opportunity to engage before the emotional brain has already committed you to a course of action. Practice the pause in low stakes situations so it is available in high stakes ones. Lower your tone when the situation escalates, not your standards, your tone. The message delivered calmly carries more weight than the same message delivered with emotional intensity. And the calm delivery communicates in itself that you have not been destabilized by the situation. That is its own form of authority. Sign number 4: you have no clear direction. Direction is the quality that produces gravity. The social and professional and romantic magnetism that draws people and opportunities toward you rather than away. The man with clear direction is going somewhere specific. He knows where. He is moving there deliberately. And that quality of directional commitment is legible to everyone around him in a way that its absence is equally legible. The behavioral expressions of directionlessness are familiar. The career that is drifting, not actively failing, not producing crises, but not moving toward anything specific either. The goals that are vague and recurring and never quite converted into genuine targets with genuine timelines. The absence of a long-term vision that makes the present decisions coherent, that gives the daily choices their meaning by connecting them to something worth building toward. Drifting men become background noise. This is the statement, not because they are invisible, because they are not going anywhere worth paying attention to. The socially and professionally and romantically significant man is the one who is moving in a direction, who is building something, pursuing something, becoming something specific. The directionless man is present but not destination oriented, and presence without direction does not command attention in the way that directed movement does. The fix is the definition of a specific target, not a vague aspiration, a concrete, specific, time bound description of where you intend to be in 3 years, not where you hope to be, where you intend to be, and then the alignment of daily actions with that target, the daily question of whether what you are doing today is moving you toward the 3 year position you have defined. Direction creates gravity. The definition of the target is the beginning of the creation of the gravity. Sign number 5. You overinvest too early in women. This sign is the one that costs men the most in the romantic domain, and it is the one that is most directly connected to the broader pattern of low-value behavior we have been describing. Because overinvestment in women is almost always the expression of a scarcity mindset. The belief, felt rather than articulated, that this specific opportunity is rare enough to justify disproportionate investment. The behavioral expressions are specific, overtexting, the maintenance of constant contact that communicates that you have nothing more important to be doing than managing this interaction. Overgifting, the premature investment of material resources that signals you are purchasing attention rather than attracting it. Over-prioritizing, the restructuring of your life around her schedule, her preferences, her availability in ways that communicate that she is the primary organizing principle of your existence rather than a valued addition to a life that was already structured and directed before she arrived. Interest versus desperation. That is the binary. Genuine interest expresses itself proportionally, with warmth and engagement that is calibrated to the actual depth and duration of the connection, not to the intensity of your desire for a particular outcome. Desperation expresses itself disproportionately, with investment that exceeds what the situation has established, that communicates the urgency of your need for this specific outcome. Overinvestment signals scarcity mindset to the woman receiving it, and scarcity mindset, read accurately or not, communicates low value. The man who cannot afford to lose this opportunity is the man who has no alternatives, and the man with no alternatives has told you something essential about his market position. The fix is the maintenance of mission focus. Your life, your work, your training, your friendships, your development is the primary structure. The romantic interest is a valued addition to that structure, not a replacement for it. Match energy rather than exceeding it. Let the investment grow proportionally with the genuine depth of the connection rather than with the intensity of your desire. Attraction respects restraint. That is the rule. The restraint is not manipulation. It is the natural behavior of a man who has a full life and is not willing to dismantle its structure for any interaction that has not yet earned that level of reorganization. Sign number 6. Your standards are flexible when convenient. Standards that flex under pressure are not standards. They are preferences. And the distinction is consequential, not just for how others treat you, but for how you treat yourself. Because the man who compromises his stated standards in the face of sufficient emotional pressure has communicated something important, that his limits are negotiable, and things that are negotiable get negotiated. The behavioral expressions in the relationship context are clear. Ignoring red flags because the attraction is strong enough to outweigh them. Accepting disrespect because the discomfort of addressing it exceeds the discomfort of tolerating it. Tolerating misalignment in values, in direction, in the basic quality of how you are treated, because the cost of holding the line seems higher than the cost of the compromise. Each of these is a moment in which the flexible standard reveals itself as a preference rather than a genuine limit. Flexible standards create unstable outcomes because the standard that was compromised once will be tested again by the same person in the same dynamic, or by the next person who correctly reads that your limits are negotiable. The precedent of the compromised standard is the invitation to the next test. Low value tolerates, high value filters. That is the distinction. The filtering is not cruelty, it is the honest application of genuine standards. The behavioral expression of knowing what you require and being willing to not have the thing that does not meet the requirement. The fix is the definition of non-negotiables, the specific behaviors, values, and standards of treatment that are not subject to negotiation regardless of the emotional circumstances. Not a long list, a short, specific, genuine list of the things you will not accept, and then the calm, consistent enforcement of that list, not with aggression, with the quiet firmness of a man who has decided where he stands and is not interested in being moved from it. Sign number 7, you compare more than you create. This is the sign that most characterizes the contemporary low-value pattern, because the contemporary environment has made comparison so structurally accessible that the man who has not deliberately built the habit of creation will default to comparison almost automatically. The behavioral expressions are familiar in this environment. The social media consumption that is primarily oriented toward assessing where you stand relative to others. Not to learn, not to connect, not to be genuinely entertained, but to benchmark. The status obsession that measures the quality of your life, primarily by whether it compares favorably to the curated highlights of other lives. The constant benchmarking that produces the specific psychological experience of chronic inadequacy, of always being behind, always measuring up to a standard that is the composite best of everyone you follow, rather than the genuine reality of any individual life. Comparison drains initiative. This is the mechanism. The hours and the mental energy spent assessing your position relative to others are hours and mental energy not spent building the things that would actually improve your position. The comparison loop is self-sustaining and self-defeating simultaneously. It consumes the resources required to address the inadequacy it is producing. Production builds identity. That is the alternative. The man who is creating, who is building something, producing something, making something that did not exist before, is oriented toward output rather than assessment. And the orientation toward output produces development in a way that the orientation toward comparison structurally cannot. The fix is the deliberate reorientation from consumption to creation. Define what you are building. Allocate your primary time and energy to building it. Create more than you consume, not as a moral stance, as a practical recognition that the identity you want, the genuine capability, the genuine direction, the genuine value, is built through output, not through the measurement of your current position relative to someone else's. Now, the dynamic that ties all 7 signs together. When you lose discipline, lose direction, and lose emotional control simultaneously. When the 7 signs are present not as isolated failures, but as a consistent pattern, you lose leverage. Not in some abstract sense, in the specific practical domains that determine the quality of your life. In dating, the man without discipline, direction, and emotional control is the man whose overinvestment signals scarcity, whose reactive emotions destabilize his frame, whose lack of direction makes him an uncompelling prospect for a woman who is assessing whether this person is going somewhere worth going with them. The leverage in the dating market belongs to the man who has built something genuine. In career, the man who avoids hard things, lacks direction, and compares more than he creates is the man whose trajectory plateaus. The leverage in professional environments belongs to the man who is developing genuine competence, who is moving toward a specific target, who produces more than he consumes. In social hierarchy, the man who seeks validation, compromises his standards, and lacks emotional control occupies a position that is determined by other people's assessments rather than his own construction. The leverage in social environments belongs to the man who has built the internal structure that produces genuine respect. Power flows toward structure. This is the statement. The structured man, the man who has built genuine discipline, genuine direction, genuine emotional stability, genuine standards, is the man toward whom opportunities, respect, and genuine relationships naturally flow, not because he has performed these qualities, because he has built them, and built things have weight that performed things do not. Now the reset, because the point of this script is not to identify decline, it is to reverse it. Fix the body first. The physical foundation is not separate from the psychological and professional and relational improvement we have been describing. It is the infrastructure on which everything else runs. The hormonal baseline, the energy availability, the postural confidence, the daily evidence that you can commit to a difficult standard and maintain it. All of these are products of consistent physical training. Fix the body, not as vanity, as the most concrete and immediate expression of the discipline that every other domain requires. Fix the income path, not necessarily the income itself, not immediately, not in ways that require circumstances beyond your control to change. The path, the direction, the specific sequence of skill development and positioning and professional investment that moves you toward a genuinely better financial position over the next 3 years. Define the path. Begin walking it. The income follows the path, not the wish. Fix emotional regulation. Start with the pause. Build the habit of the 2-second delay between provocation and response. Practice in low-stakes situations. Build the capacity in the ordinary moments so it is available in the significant ones. The emotional regulation is the skill that makes every other improvement sustainable, because every other improvement will eventually be tested under pressure. And the man without emotional regulation fails those tests regardless of his other capabilities. Fix the daily routine. The routine is the infrastructure of the life. The man whose days are unstructured is a man whose development is left to chance, dependent on motivation, on circumstance, on the variable quality of individual days. The man whose days are structured has converted his priorities into automatic behaviors that occur regardless of motivation, regardless of circumstance, regardless of whether today is a good day or a bad one. Structure your day. Build the routine around the things that matter and protect it from the things that don't. Reduce distractions. The attention is the resource. Everything is competing for it. The social media, the passive entertainment, the low-stakes social dynamics that consume hours without producing anything, all of these are extracting the resource that your development requires. You cannot build anything significant with the attention that remains after the distractions have taken their share. Reduce the distractions first. Allocate what remains to the construction. Small, consistent upgrades compound. This is the mechanism of the entire reset, not the dramatic transformation, not the complete overhaul. The daily small improvement in each domain. The single additional set. The single additional hour of focused work. The single additional moment of emotional restraint, compounding over months into a genuinely different man. Now, the philosophical layer. Attraction can exist without respect. This is a truth that most men learn from experience rather than from instruction, and the learning from experience is typically more expensive than the learning from instruction would have been. A woman can be genuinely attracted to a man she does not respect. The attraction is real, but it is unstable. It does not sustain itself through the ordinary challenges of a relationship. It does not produce the genuine partnership that lasting commitment requires. It does not survive the circumstances that reveal character. Liked versus respected. That is the binary. Being liked is pleasant. Being respected is functional. Respect sustains long-term value in every domain. In dating, in career, in friendship, in the social environments that determine your quality of life. Build the things that produce genuine respect. The liking follows. Here is the ending. Two options. You can keep drifting and blaming circumstances. Can attribute the quality of your life to the economy, to your upbringing, to the unfairness of the environment, to the variables that are genuinely outside your control, while ignoring the variables that are entirely within it. Many men do this. It is comfortable. It is also the specific pattern of behavior that ensures nothing changes. Or you can rebuild structure and regain leverage. You can look at the 7 signs honestly, not with shame, because shame is not useful, but with the clear-eyed assessment of a man who sees what needs to change and is willing to do the work that change requires. You can begin the daily practice of the reset, the body, the income path, the emotional regulation, the routine, the reduction of distraction, and allow the compound effect of consistent small improvements to produce, over months and years, a genuinely different result. Low value is not permanent. It is a phase of neglect. The neglect that produces it is reversible. The discipline that reverses it is available to any man who is willing to apply it consistently. The man reading the script right now is not too far gone. There is no version of this decline that is permanent if the reversal begins today. Reclaim discipline. The workouts, the standards, the difficult conversations, the career investments, the emotional restraint, all of it. Reclaim the discipline that the comfort eroded, not all at once. One decision at a time, but begin today. The compounding starts from the first decision. Raise standards. Define what you actually require. In how you treat yourself. In how others treat you. In what you invest your time and attention in. And hold to those standards when the pressure to compromise arrives. Because it will arrive. And the man who holds his standards under pressure is the man who has actually built them. The man who compromises under pressure has discovered he had preferences, not standards. Move with intention. Every action oriented toward the 3-year target. Every hour allocated to building rather than drifting. Every decision made from the position of the man you are becoming rather than the man the comfort has been shaping you into. Value is built, not given. That is the text overlay, and it is the truth that closes everything. Nobody gives you value. No relationship, no circumstance, no fortunate accident of birth or timing grants you the genuine respect and genuine options and genuine quality of life that high value produces. You build it daily through the accumulated small decisions that either compound into something worth being proud of or erode into the quiet disappointment of a life that settled for less than it could have been. You are not too late. Begin